Hey guys, welcome to Thrive Bites podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for listening on. You could have been anywhere in the world and you decided to spend just a few moments of your precious time, and we greatly appreciate it. Here on the podcast, we talk about three things: living a plant-powered lifestyle, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview a range of passionate guests such as physicians, dietitians, coaches, entrepreneurs, and many more. And please join me as I deliver these engaging, informative, and high-valued conversations for you. So what are you waiting for? Come on inside. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Dr. Colin Zhu, aka TheChefDoc, and we have a great episode for you guys today. I'll be interviewing Dr. Melanie Cano, or Doctora Melanie Cano, and we are going to be talking about her story, how she is a pioneer and working with the Hispanic community. She's originally from Panama. We're going to be talking about how she grew up, how she went through the medical system, and all the different things in terms of how she's been traveling, how she's been working with renowned organization, and how she is bringing plant-based nutrition to her clients. And we're going to be talking about all that and more. You don't want to miss this, and we'll see you inside. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. You could have been anywhere in the world, and you decided to be here with us, and we greatly appreciate your time, because time is such a precious commodity that you cannot renew. So we really appreciate it. Today, we have a wonderful, wonderful guest with us today. Her name is Doctora Melanie Cano, and she is the founder of Somos Plant Powered. And in addition to being a wonderful human being, not only is she a doctor, but she's also a nutritionist and a creator of many, many different types of plant-based recipes. She has a cookbook. She has a recipe repertoire. And her job, her passion in life is really to help people transform their eating habits, to live in harmony with their own body, and understand that they don't need to go to quick fixes and diets, and that everything is really intertwined. Her work has spanned from working in public hospitals in her country to world-renowned private clinics, and also working with international organizations in the field of plant-based nutrition. She's also completed her master's degree in nutrition and metabolism in Barcelona, and joining the team of medical advisors for Dr. Colin Campbell's Nutrition Studies Center in New York. And we're going to get through all of that and kind of see where she is off to next in the world. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Melanie. Hello.
Hello. So happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. Buenos dias, buenos dias.
Great. I'm very happy to be here.
We are as well. I have so much to go through with you. I'm really, really excited. Can you please share with the audience where you're calling from?
Well, I'm originally from Panama. I have been in several places so far, but currently I'm again in Panama before I head myself again to Asia. So right now I'm here, but in a few months I'm going to be in Asia, Southeast Asia.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, you told me about this offline, and I was like, wow, she's just, we have a cartoon series in America called Where is Carmen Sandiego? And that's what I feel like with you. It's like, where is she going?
Yeah, I know. My parents think the same way.
So you're going to Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah, to Bali.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, you're gonna, in terms of food, you're gonna, I haven't been. I would love to do a 2-month tour of that area, just eating everything. So I'm really excited for you.
It's amazing. I went last year for more or less 4 months. 2 of those months I spent in Bali, in Ubud, and food it's like the plant-based paradise. You don't have to be like picking what's the best option in the restaurant. They're all amazing options, and you can go to different places, and you don't have to be like micromanaging what you're going to eat or ask for changes in the menu. It's just perfect. So yeah, I know I'm going to have a very good time, and you should go as well.
Oh yeah. Share pictures, please.
Of course.
Keep me in the loop. So let's start. So basically, for my audience members that don't know who you are, I would love to start by asking my guests' origin story, how they got from point A to point B. And so you are first, correct me if I'm wrong, a doctor and nutritionist. And how can you share with us kind of like the moments that motivated you, that inspired you to really get yourself on this pathway?
Okay, sure. So, well, since I was a child, I imagined myself being a doctor for some reason. I love babies. Like I always wanted to be holding babies for some reason. I just loved them. And when I discovered that there were doctors specialized in children, I said to myself, oh my God, I'm going to be a pediatrician because I love kids and I love helping people. And it was just my desire since I was a very little girl. And well, I kept that desire throughout my childhood and adolescence. And when I graduated from school, I just told my dad, like, I don't have any options, like it's just medicine. I don't really have any other options. If I don't pass the exam, I really don't know what I'm going to do because I don't have anything else in my brain right now. Fortunately, I did very well on the exams and I got accepted into the best university here in Panama, which is a big deal because whenever you don't get to that university, you have to either go to private schools or go abroad. So that was like the best public university in Panama, and I made it. So that was amazing. So anyhow, I started that career.
Before you continue, so just to kind of give context, because Americans, they have to go through university and then they go into medical school. And my understanding is that most medical training happens after high school. So was that the same in Panama for you?
Yeah, I understand you guys do like 2 years of pre-med or something like that, and then you do 4 years of med school. Is that correct?
We do 4 years of university and then we go 4 years of medical school and then 3+ years of residency.
Okay, so here, that's the thing. You graduate from high school and you do 6 years of medicine.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, and then 2 years of internship. So that makes it 8 years of career. Yeah.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
then you decide to specialize in something, either a residency or a master's degree or any route you want to do. Yeah.
Okay. Please continue.
All right. So yeah, I started med school, and during the path, I just realized that the kids they were okay, like to hold them, but maybe not to treat them. So that idea like took another way, and I decided to take care of adults. So I changed a little bit during the career, which was very, very good for me in the end, because I understood that adults are also a very important pillar for nutrition in kids. Like we are the ones to be in charge of their nutrition if we have kids, etc. So in the end, I kind of, like I didn't abandon the idea of taking care of kids, but through their parents, which is what I'm doing right now. So, well, going back to med school, something I can share that's very interesting, and it's like pivoting in my career, is that with all of these schedules and things we have to do, and that messy life in med school, like my diet was a mess. I had a very poor sleep as well. Stress management was horrible as well. So I started gaining a lot of weight during med school, to the point that I was very uncomfortable all the time. And I decided to switch habits, like eating habits, with the help of the nutritionist, which was okay. But at the same time, when I started this journey on restrictive diets, I began losing weight, but I started developing a very bad relationship with food as well. So kind of when you take a medication for something and then you also get the side effects of it, right? So I started experiencing this yo-yo effect of gaining and losing weight, very typical of weight loss restrictive dieting, feeling anxious about food and counting calories all the time. So it wasn't a very great experience, but something I can take from all of this is that I started noticing that there was a relationship within food and your body. Maybe at this point I was not focusing on health. I was just focusing on the body changes when you introduce food or you change what you're eating, not maybe like related to diseases or health outcomes, but I started noticing that there was a relationship within food and your body, basically.
Mhm.
So years passed. I graduated from the university, started working on hospitals, and that was a very strong experience for me, knowing like the reality we face in public health system in my country, which I think is very similar to many countries around the world.
Mm.
And seeing that the same vicious cycle was on repeat over and over again, like patients arrive, they're stabilized with drugs and discharged, and no education
Mm.
is part of the journey. It was kind of frustrating for me. And I started like getting uncomfortable with all of the panorama I was being part of, because I was also part of the system. That's what I learned from the university, like medications and patients in, patients out, and that's it.
From a Panama's like citizens perspective, right, on health,
Mm.
is it, do they feel like they only need to go to the doctor only when they're sick, or does Panama's system promote preventative services, as well? Like, what is a typical, Panamanians like perspective on health?
Not at all. Not at all preventive. There's something going on, like you have the symptom, you don't know what else to do. You already took your ibuprofen and all the things you already know, and then you go to the hospital whenever there's no other way around. So
Mm,
not at all preventive. Not at all.
mm,
Yeah.
gotcha. So
So
pretty much similar to like American, where, because I get a lot of patients that come to me and I ask them, when was the last time you had a physical, you had a checkup? And they would say on average 3+ years. And what I say to that, right? And they think it's okay because they haven't been sick, right? Like, I felt great, I haven't been sick. And so
yeah.
what I say to them is, well, that means you haven't brought in your car to get serviced for 3 years. And then they looked at it differently. And then I continue the conversation.
Good example. Love it. Love it.
Please
So yeah,
continue.
during this journey, I began to realize that there was a lot of room for improvement, definitely on the conventional medical system. So after much consideration and kind of being frustrated because of the system, I decided to take this different route about nutrition habits and started educating my patients on it. Because the root cause of many conditions is your habits, basically. So not paying attention to it and just trying to use makeup to try to manage the thing, which is medications in many occasions, it didn't really make sense to me. So after that, after working for a couple of years in government hospitals here in Panama, I started working on regenerative medicine with mesenchymal stem cells. I did that with a very known clinic here in Panama, private clinic in Panama, and I treated patients from all around the world, especially patients from North America, USA, of course, and all over the world. And it was, it's different from conventional medicine, but still patients come with the idea that this is a magic pill and everything is going to be solved after it. But in the end, you need to still keep working on your habits. So I did that for some years. It was very rewarding. It was very interesting to treat patients with different conditions and seeing their outcomes, like patients with autism, degenerative conditions as well, anything you can imagine. So that was very interesting as well. But I was still like, I need something else. I want to give more to my patients in terms of education. So that's when I went to Barcelona and did my master's degree in nutrition and metabolism. But it all started with, messy diets in med school and, basically destroying your body, and then taking care of it, and then wanted to like give or educate people around that same idea.
It's not something I would advocate you do, right? Like, just go and destroy yourself and then realize, oh, this is what it feels like, right?
Right.
There's a great documentary, I don't know if you ever seen this, in America, called Super Size Me. Many years ago it was made, and it was a filmmaker. He wanted to kind of see what it was like to just be on a fast food diet. So he just ate, I don't know for how long, how many weeks or how many months, but he just ate McDonald's for at least a month. And, his labs are all, a mess. Physically, he was a mess. And then he started to, change his life around. So it's not something I would recommend that you just put yourself in, and it wasn't your intention. But I think it's such a powerful experience, and you probably gained so many great lessons from it, that this is
Right.
not where I want to be, right? And as a physician, it's a very powerful message that you send to your patients, because you have a lived experience, right? Because imagine that you've never been overweight before, you've never been obese, you've never had heart disease or high blood pressure. And so it's less of a connection that you would have, right? So for me, like, I think it's important to practice what you preach and be the living example. So, I'm
Totally.
happy that you've gained those lessons for yourself. So that's a nice segue to our next question is, the bulk of, your career, the bulk of your work is really focusing on plant-based nutrition. Did your medical school, did your training ever teach you about one, nutrition? And if yes, then was there anything about, anything related to plant-based nutrition? And if not, how did you come to find it and lead you into Barcelona and everything after that?
Yeah, not at all. In med school, we usually are taught like 2 months or 3 months of nutrition, and it's like very mild nutrition, so you don't really care about it, and you don't. It's like those subjects that are like you don't really pay attention to those subjects. You just want to pass them, and then you're focusing on the big thing, on pharmacologies and
Mm-hmm.
all the deep thing that you think is the right way.
Yeah. Pharmacology and pathophysiology. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So not at all. Like we didn't really pay attention to it. So, and in that time, I just thought it was like about gaining weight or losing weight. I really didn't connect all the things until I had a really like brutal aha moment when I was working on one of these hospitals here in Panama. I talked to a very good friend and colleague, and I asked him, like, what are you pursuing with your career? Because I wasn't comfortable with what I was dealing at the point. And he told me, well, Melanie, I'm learning about nutrition and lifestyle medicine, and I recommend you to read this book, which is very good. This book was called The China Study of Dr. T. Colin Campbell. So I bought the book right away, and I read it in the blink of an eye. And at the end of the book, Dr. Campbell invites you to get certified in plant-based nutrition under his CNS organization that has a certification endorsed by Cornell University. So I did that. I enrolled to the certificate, and it was kind of a good start in my journey. And around that time, I also read Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, and it was mind-blowing for me. One of the analogies he uses in that book, he says something like, we doctors are just trained to mop floors instead of turning off the faucets.
Mm-hmm.
And that blew my mind. I was like brutally identified with him, and I said, my goodness gracious, like I have been studying for 10 years, and all of this, you don't know, like I'm doing nothing for the patients.
I wish I had focused on this.
Exactly. And then you start thinking to yourself, like, what have I done during these 10 years, last 10 years of my life? Like, I went to med school, the most important med school in Panama, and what am I doing with the patients? Like, oh my God, it was massive, but it was a good beginning for me, I would say. So
yeah, similarly, for me, so I came from a different background where my mother is a traditional Chinese medical doctor. So my entire world was preventative.
wow.
And I thought that I was going to combine Western and Eastern. And then what took over was similarly in American schools back then, it's much better now. And, gaining traction is that same. You just learn about drugs, and then you learn about how disease manifests. And then every patient that came through, it doesn't matter, they just came in for a cough or they came in with low back pain, they had some sort of lifestyle risk factor. And I was like, wow, this wasn't taught anything. And so I made a lot of detours, and same thing. It's like, how come I wasn't taught this?
Right. And well, during that journey, I did this certificate in English with Cornell University and Center for Nutrition Studies. And about a year later, CNS contacted me and they wanted to start collaborating with me for the Spanish speaking community, because they had all of this developed in English, but we didn't really have a lot to share with Latin Americans, So we started these collaborations. I started teaching classes and master classes to their community. And in the end, they decided to make up this certificate in Spanish. The one I did in English, they wanted to replicate it basically in Spanish. So they invited me and I went to Miami to record this certificate with them. And actually it was launched like a few weeks ago. So we did that in 2020.
Oh, really?
And it was launched like 3 weeks ago. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. We were very, very happy for that experience. And well, now I'm part of the medical advisory board of CNS, which was also mind-blowing. And it was a complete honor for me. I was in Barcelona when that started. And, I was in the same Zoom meeting with all of these giant personalities that I saw in Netflix and all of these doctors. And I was like, oh my God, I'm here sitting with all of these guys, like I'm here, I'm from Panama. That's very weird, but here I am. I was very honored for that experience. And now we have been developing this very good relationship throughout the years. So I think that's very important and rewarding for me as well, because the part of educating people, it's just so important to me. And that's why I'm on social media constantly, like sharing content and giving people things away because they need it. There's much more influence from traditional medicine than there is from lifestyle medicine, plant-based nutrition, etc. So I think it's kind of what it's meant to be for me.
And I would love to ask you this question is, from your perspective, what is the biggest gap? What is the biggest need from Latin America, from the Hispanic community, that we are not doing enough of, right? Is it similar to, the same gap in terms of food access, in terms of lack of nutrition, in terms of lack of public health? Like, what are the gaps? What do you hope that program would achieve?
It's basically education, traditions, what my mom taught me to eat, what my granny taught me to eat. And we just stay in that path and we think like anything else is like, no, that's taking me out of the comfort zone. That's not meant to be. I've been eating like this all my life. Why should I change the way I eat? So it's a lot of education. And then hearing, maybe it's the same over there, but the hustle of working, you're always paying attention to your job. Job is more important than anything else. And the same thing that happened to me back in med school, when I was just studying and seeing schedules and I didn't really pay attention to my nutrition or my lifestyle. I think it happens the same in the daily basis of people when they're working, because, for example, here in Panama, people have to wake up between 4-6 a.m., more or less 5 a.m. to go to their jobs, and they come back, and with the traffic and everything, they come back at 10 p.m. So it's kind of difficult to get in the way all these lifestyle habits we want to put the patients to begin with. So I would say time is a very important thing. And I don't think it's just an excuse, because we usually say all of those are excuses, but actually for people living in the main city, it's not that difficult, but for people that live like around the city, it's a little bit more difficult. And those populations are the ones that have more hypertension, more diabetes, more all of these chronic conditions. So time and education, I think, is what we're lacking the most over here.
So in terms of a public health perspective, do you feel like the public health department is lacking in terms of education? They would need more professionals like yourself, or they just prioritize similarly to an American system where everything is just reactive, right? The problem comes and then you do something about it. Like, if you had a magic wand, right? You're like, poof, if I can change this, like, what would that be for you?
Wow, I think the problem is in many different areas, like the food they provide in hospitals, the food they provide to kids in public schools as well. Like in every single aspect of the panorama, there's something to do. So I can't really tell, like, if I had a magic one, like I will put it into one specific area. But for me, it's education, because people usually think that having a healthy diet is very expensive, and it really don't have to be that way. Like, you have the basic ingredients you have, but the way you cook, that something as simple as that, and if you educate the population, they could make better health choices or food choices. So I would say education at schools, that would be something that could change a little bit the panorama. And of course, changing the regular vicious cycle in hospitals, that would be a big one as well. Yeah.
Is there a way that you can actually take the collaboration and the Spanish speaking program that you developed with them into into Panama and actually infiltrate, the public health system?
Oh, that's a very interesting question.
Yeah. Have you thought about that? I was like, let's just do it.
Because as I'm like traveling a lot, I haven't like paused myself to think about that, and I'm just doing private consultations right now, because you would need to change a lot of things in the public self-care system in order to do something like that. But it would be amazing, at least there are some things that we're doing right now, and there's an organization called, what's the name of it, like Movimiento Saludable de Panama, something like that, and they're trying to put these big black like stickers on top of the food at the supermarkets, like this is high in salt, this have an excess of saturated fats and things like that they've done that in Mexico and Chile as well. So they're trying to put more warnings into foods in the supermarkets for people to see them and be a little bit more reactive about it, kind of like the cigarettes, like all of these images that they put, lung cancer and stuff, but trying to put that into food. So we are developing that right now. We are in more or less trying to educate people that way. So at least something,
Yeah. Okay. So you focus mainly on having private, consultations. And so what are the main questions, the biggest topics or questions that your patients typically ask you, right? So they come to you, they want to, optimize their health, they want to feel better. What are the common questions that you get from your patients, and how do you respond?
So common questions are, Dr. Melanie, how much should I eat? Which comes a lot from the diet culture, right? So how many calories? What are the amounts of the portions I should eat? Quantities, proteins, of course. Where am I going to get the proteins? That's something that you can get on a daily basis as well, right? So there's a lot of concern about proteins and how will I get them if I don't need animals, and oh my God, it's just kind of annoying because you get this question every single day.
It's amazing because that question has gone to your country, because I just thought that maybe it's just a Western type of thought, right, in society, right? And it's amazing how it crosses cultures.
Totally. Yeah. I would say that's the main concern they have, like quantities and portions, because people usually think about dieting as portions. They don't think about a good diet as quality foods. They just think the amount is what's going to make you feel better. So that, again, that's restrictive diet culture, basically. So yeah, they're very focused on that, like how much, but tell me how much. And I'm like, hey, let's focus on the quality of your foods instead of the quantity of your food. And that way you don't have to feel restricted all the time. And we can distribute your plate with different portions of vegetables and fruits and plant-based foods, So, but still the traditional mindset of, but where's the meat? Like, what am I... what's substituting where the meat is supposed to be there? So that's a little bit tricky because you have to educate the patients. And that's one of the reasons why my consultations are not just one-on-one consultations, but I have an educational process as well. Like, I see patients one-on-one, and between consultations, they have all of these videos that I have recorded for them to understand a little bit more in depth all the nutrition and the science behind it. I really don't like to work with them like, hey, go eat what's written on this page and that's it. But I explain them like why you're eating this, and how you correlate what you're doing with what you want to achieve. So that's very important for me, because I went through different diets when I was very young, and basically the nutritionist, they just gave me a page like, go and eat this, but I really didn't make the click between what I was
Understand.
and what I was getting, so in the end, if you're just focusing on weight, like suddenly you'll get kind of wasted from all of that and you will leave it. But if you understand the relationship that there's between your health and those daily habits, then you'll have more probabilities to achieve what you're looking for, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I think when you practice this type of medicine, right, either plant-based nutrition or lifestyle medicine, what you realize that, like you said, it's all about education. So, and from the patient or client's perspective, it's really about, okay, are they aware of their habits and routines and lifestyles, right? Are they aware of the connection with how they come from the generations, right? Because the way I think about it, everyone, I don't know about your patients, but my patients very commonly think that, okay, my grandmother had this, my father had this, my uncle had this, my sister has this. So I think I'm going to eventually have this, and there's nothing I can do. So, a part of what I do is emphasizing over and over and over again the connection with where the food comes from and how it arrives to your plate, and then the connection of how you have grown up and how you have modeled your parents and how their parents have modeled their grandparents and how it got to you. And not everything has to be genetics, right? So it takes a lot of time. You know this, right? It takes a lot of time. And I'm guessing that's probably why you created your educational series, because there's no way for you to, if I had a wish, I would clone myself and be able to address so many more people, because there's just not enough of me, right? So in a way, when you created your series, that probably helps you, right? Because there's repetition, there's reinforcement. So I love the fact that you did that. And from that, can you share what your patients have achieved from going through your consultations and your educational series? Like, what do they feel, or what do they, learn about themselves?
Of course. I've got a lot of patients that were diagnosed because of labs, like with pre-diabetes or hypothyroidism or different conditions, that once they go to their doctor, they are prescribed with medication, and they like get very scared from it, and they come run into my consultation, that like telling me like, I know you're the natural one, the natural doctor, so let me fix this without medication. And I start telling them like, yes, there's a lot of things we can do, but we have to negotiate here if you're willing to do the work, because it's not a magic pill. We have to do the hard work. We have to work on those habits. We have to change your mindset, and we can make it happen. So one specific patient that I can recall, she came with hypothyroidism. They gave her the medication, and she said, there's no way I'm going to take this for the rest of my life. So there was a problem in her microbiota. We treated her microbiome with different foods and like an anti-inflammatory protocol. So after a month and a half, more or less, her thyroid hormones went back to normal, and we arranged the problem because of her gut issues and not because she was having a thyroid condition. But in the conventional medicine, it's just take your medication and that's it. And then she knew it came from her gut, and we did a very good work there, and she was just so amazed, like, oh wow, I'm really glad that I didn't take the medication and I came to you. And that happens the same with hypertension and pre-diabetes, diabetes, and several conditions. It's basically, they usually come because they are scared, because they already have the condition. I would love them to come to my consultations as a preventive way to have that condition, but usually that's not the way they come. They come already with that condition, already with their labs in red, and they want to reverse the condition naturally. And that's when they come to the natural way of healing things.
Yeah, I've had actually, being a family practitioner, or outside of America, it's general medicine. I had all of it, right? I've had patients that didn't know what to do, and they wanted the resources, and they already had the problem. And then on the opposite spectrum, I had patients that wanted already was preventative, but they did a lot of research on their own because they didn't have any good resources. They did a lot on their own. And so the challenge with that population is tweaking and then changing what they already know, right? So you have different sets of challenges. I totally understand. People would come to me and say like, oh, you're the alternative one, you're the lifestyle one, you're the, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like you, this is not a magic pill. And using your example of your analogy from Dr. Greger, which I believe is actually from Dr. Ornish, where he says that, you're just mopping up the floor. I tell my patient, I was like, listen, the medicine is just to control the numbers, right, before you have a problem. But you still didn't change anything, right? And so I have a sink behind me in the office, right? And I said, you're just mopping up, the medicine is just mopping up the floor, but the faucet is still going on. So I would turn on the faucet. And so, they make the connection. They're like, oh, the faucet's still running. I didn't do anything, right? So like at home, you would turn off the faucet immediately, right? If you forget it, right?
Right.
But most people don't make that connection. And so I think it's a skill set. It's a skill set that needs to become a talent for us physicians across the board, that we need to make these connections and bridge the gap for our patients like this. And I think you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely that way. People get used to fast things, convenient things, and convenient is fast food. And at the same time, convenient is just taking a pill. So the easy way. And in the end, it's kind of, like I say to my patients, like you're putting makeup on top of your acne, for example, but you're not doing anything to it. In the end, you take all of that and you still have the condition there. So it's basically something like that, trying to change their mindset. And that's something I always tell my patients at first, like, if you're willing to do this, if you want to start this journey, then you have to be like really commit to it. It's not just, I'm just going to do it for a couple of months. And that's something I usually tell them as well. Like if you're coming here because you want to put a very nice dress in 1 month because you have a wedding, then that's not with me. You can go with the regular way of nutrition. But if you really want to work in your habits because you want to have a great life, you want to have a functional life, you want to get older, like being strong and being able to do everything you want, then that's me. Like if you are willing to do the work because you want to keep these habits throughout your life, then we're talking about something we can work together. But if it's just for losing weight for 1 month, like I did back then that's not the way I'm working anymore. Yeah.
Right. Because people don't understand that it's a foundational change. They just want to change because we're so obsessed. I think the internet made it worse. Social media make it worse. Beyond, before it was just TV and magazines, but now we have social media, and it just makes it worse because people really are obsessed with how they look on the outside. My next question is, we're about to close. And so what I would love to ask you is, can you give me 3 things that you wish your patients knew more of, right? Like 3 big ones, right? It's like, I wish everyone that came through, knew this. Like, give me your top 3.
Okay, I would say making them understand that their habits have the potential to radically change their lives. That would be 1. That having a life is a gift, and having the opportunity to care for it is a blessing. So you shouldn't take that blessing for granted, and you should work on it on a daily basis. And what else? This is a good one as well. I would tell them, like, the pleasure that comes with food, it doesn't have to be something how do we say this in English? My goodness gracious. Aislado, like something like an island. That's like just a single thing. Like
It doesn't have to be an isolated event.
isolated. Yes, isolated, of course. So it doesn't have the pleasure in food doesn't have to be something isolated, but it can also come with good quality foods. And there's something I called in Spanish, I call it la teoría del doble placer. So the double pleasure theory, that's both the pleasure in food plus the nutritional benefits from it. So coping those two is a blessing for your life, and not just staying with the pleasure of food, not just staying with the nutritional benefit of food, but putting both together, which is something I know you know how to do pretty well because you like to cook just as me. Putting all of those together would make you feel happy, because having healthy habits, they don't have to be something like
restrictive.
Exactly. And you don't have to feel like sad because of it. It doesn't have to be like that at all. So I would say those would be my three main things I would love them to interiorize.
Que bueno. Yeah, I totally agree 100%. Where can we find Somos Plant Powered? What was tell us a little bit about what that is, right? And where can we find you?
Okay, so this is a movement. I started it in 2020 with the goal of educating patients, basically raising that awareness about health and the preventive point of view of healthy habits as well. So I started giving master classes, I developed my cookbook, and I started an online program to help people transition into a plant-based diet. So yeah, it all started because like with the aim of educating people and raising awareness on the topic. So you can find me on all social medias as Somos Plant Powered. Originally, I wanted to be called Plant Powered, but the handle was already taken. So I said like, well, Somos sounds like we are all in this together. So it's like kind of a movement. And then, yeah, Somos Plant Powered was created. So you can find me on TikTok, Threads, Instagram. Instagram is the one that I usually use the most. The other ones are like, they are there, they exist, but I don't really use them a lot, especially TikTok. So I'm mostly on Instagram as Somos Plant Powered, and then on email is hola, as hello, but in Spanish, hola at somosplantpowered.com, and my website, that's somosplantpowered.com as well.
Awesome. And then at the time of release, we'll put this in the show notes, and we'll make sure that everyone has a chance to connect with you. As you're traveling, do you still take consultations and clients?
Sure, I do. Schedules are a little bit tricky, but because there's like 13-hour difference, 14-hour differences between time zones. But yeah, I still consult whenever I'm abroad.
Well, you may get some Indonesian.
Maybe, who knows?
Dr. Melanie, thank you so much for being here with us. It's amazing, your entire journey, what you do and what you continue to do. I'm very, very grateful to, meet people like yourself that's fighting the good fight. And, kind of like what you're saying, Somos Plant Powered is, you're talking about the we. And what I tell people is that wellness is a team sport, because the word we is in wellness. And so you got to do it juntos. You got to do it together, right? And so, I really, really appreciate the work that you've done and for being here with us.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here. I'm keen to look at the whole episode once it's released. So thank you so much for having me here as well, Colin.
Of course. Guys, thank you so much for being here with us on another episode. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you felt like this was a benefit for someone else, you can let them know. And until then, please say goodbye, adios, nos vemos, to Dr. Melanie. Bye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoy that episode. If you like that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And if you felt that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating, and we greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.